Early morning, July 21st, 1944. A rainy courtyard inside Berlin's Bendlerblock. Two heavy military trucks park side by side, their headlights cutting through the dark and glaring directly against a damp brick wall. A few minutes later, four men walk out into the light. One of them is Colonel Claus von Stauffenberg. They stand against the brick. Orders are shouted, a squad raises their rifles, and a volley of gunfire shatters the silence. By the time the smoke clears, the ringleader of the July 20th plot is dead. For the Nazi high command, that was supposed to be the end of it. The bomb went off. The conspirators were shot. Crisis over. Back to business. Except it wasn't over. Not even close. While Stauffenberg's body was being dumped into a shallow grave, the SS and the Gestapo were already turning their attention somewhere else. They didn't just want to kill the men who tried to blow up Hitler. They wanted to punish their wives, their brothers, their cousins, even their toddlers. They dug up an ancient legal concept, Sippenhaft, or kinship liability. The idea was simple. If one person betrays the state, their entire bloodline pays the price. The goal wasn't just revenge. It was total destruction. They wanted to wipe the name Stauffenberg off the face of the earth. To understand how fast and how viciously this hit, you have to rewind about 12 hours. It's noon on July 20th. Stauffenberg arrives at the Wolf's Lair, Hitler's heavily fortified headquarters hidden deep in the pine forests of East Prussia. It's hot, humid, and airless. Stauffenberg is carrying a heavy leather briefcase. Inside are 2 blocks of plastic explosives with chemical delays. He walks into a wooden conference barracks where over 20 officers are standing around a massive oak table, listening to a briefing on the collapsing Eastern Front. Stauffenberg sets the briefcase on the floor, sliding it right under the table, just a few feet away from Hitler. Then he quietly slips out of the room, claiming he needs to make an urgent phone call. At 12:42 p.m., the room blows apart. The explosion tears off the roof, blows out the windows, and turns the heavy wooden walls into splintered kindling. Watching a thick cloud of black smoke rise over the trees from a nearby staff car, Stauffenberg is dead certain. No one in that room could have made it out alive. He heads straight for the airfield, boards his plane to Berlin, and assumes Operation Valkyrie, the plan to use the reserve army to seize control of the Reich, is a go. But a tiny detail changed everything. After Stauffenberg left the room, another officer bumped into the briefcase with his foot and pushed it deeper under the table, putting a massive, solid oak support leg directly between the bomb and Hitler. That heavy piece of wood took the brunt of the blast. 4 people in the room were fatally wounded. Hitler walked away with torn trousers, burnt hair, ruptured eardrums, and a broken arm. But he survived. By midnight, back in Berlin, the coup was falling apart. Loyal troops surrounded the Bendlerblock. Stauffenberg was arrested, dragged into the courtyard, and executed on the spot by an officer trying to cover his own tracks. That night, Heinrich Himmler took the microphone in front of Nazi regional leaders. He laid out the new doctrine with terrifying clarity. From now on, treason wasn't an individual crime anymore. It was in the blood. If a man turned against the Führer, his entire family was guilty by default. The Gestapo went to work immediately. Their first stop was the Stauffenberg family home in Swabia. They came for Nina von Stauffenberg, Klaus's wife. She was 31 years old, caring for 4 small children and 5 months pregnant with her 5th. On July 23rd, agents dragged her away, leaving the kids behind. She was interrogated for weeks before being dumped into solitary confinement at the Ravensbrück concentration camp. They kept her alive for one reason only: to deliver the baby. For months, Nina sat in a freezing cell, having no idea if her husband was dead or alive, where her children were, or if anyone in her family had survived. In January 1945, with Soviet artillery roaring in the distance, they moved her westward. She gave birth to a daughter in a makeshift clinic. Minutes after the baby arrived, guards took the child away. Meanwhile, the SS had a very specific plan for the four older Stauffenberg children: Berthold, Heimerin, Franz Ludwig, and Valerie. They ranged from 10 years old down to 3. Agents took them from their home, loaded them into cars, and drove them to Bad Saxe, an isolated children's home tucked away in the Harz Mountains. The moment they stepped through the door, their identities were erased. Their birth certificates were destroyed. Their names were taken away. From that day on, they were given the generic surname Meister. The rules were brutal. The children were forbidden from using their real names, mentioning their home, or talking about their parents. The youngest, 3-year-old Valerie, was simply told her parents were dead. The plan was to raise them in total anonymity, re-educate them, and hand them out to loyal Nazi families as ideological orphans. While the kids were being re-educated, the Gestapo was hunting down every living person connected to the name Stauffenberg. Klaus's older brother, Berthold, a brilliant legal scholar, was arrested, tortured, put through a show trial, and hanged with piano wire at Plötzensee prison. In total, over 40 members of the extended family were arrested: grandmothers, aunts, uncles, cousins. Their houses were seized, their possessions stolen, and they were thrown into Gestapo prisons across Germany. By February 1945, the Nazi regime was crumbling on all fronts. As Allied armies closed in, the SS gathered the surviving Stauffenberg relatives and shipped them to Buchenwald concentration camp. They were locked in Barrack 15, a special compound used for prominent political hostages. By April, American tanks were practically at the gates of Buchenwald, but the SS wasn't planning on letting their prisoners walk free. Orders came straight from Berlin: evacuate the VIP hostages south toward the Alps, and if things look hopeless, execute every single one of them. For weeks, a nightmare convoy of trucks snaked through ruined German towns under constant Allied air attacks. By late April, dozens of prominent political prisoners, including the Stauffenbergs, were crammed into the small Alpine village of Niederdorf in South Tyrol. An SS execution squad was standing by, waiting for the final signal to march them into the woods and shoot them. Then came an extraordinary twist. A regular German army unit under the command of Captain Richard von Alvensleben happened to be stationed nearby. Alvensleben found out that an SS unit was holding over 100 political prisoners hostage in a nearby hotel and preparing to execute them. Alvensleben didn't hesitate. He ordered his soldiers to fix bayonets, roll up heavy machine guns, and completely surround the SS camp. He walked up to the SS commander, pulled his pistol, and gave him an ultimatum: "Hand over the prisoners right now, or my men will open fire." Outgunned and staring down the barrels of regular army rifles, the SS squad backed off, dropped their weapons, and fled into the mountains. The prisoners were saved. A few days later, on May 4th, 1945, American troops rolled into the valley and took over the hotel. After the war ended, Nina von Stauffenberg spent months searching through displaced persons camps and hospitals across Germany. By late August 1945, against all odds, she managed to find and gather every single one of her 5 children. The Nazi apparatus tried to erase a family from history. They built a machinery of terror, isolation, and identity theft to make sure the name Stauffenberg ceased to exist. In the end, that machinery didn't break down because of a sudden change of heart. It broke down because the regime crumbled and because ordinary human courage stood in the way when it mattered most.